Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Beyond Influence. I'm your host, Kwame Appiah, and I am very excited to have a guest with us today who reached out to me about the podcast, about being on the podcast, about talking about a book that they had written. And I got exposure to that book and got really, really interested because there's a topic that so many people don't know enough about that affects so much of us. And so very happy to have you here today, Carrie Berk. Carrie, how are you?
Hi, very excited to chat.
Yes, for sure. So, we'll keep it simple, right? How's your week going? How's everything flowing? How's life right now?
It's good. Like I said, I feel like this week is going by very slow and my brain is half dead. I'm very exhausted, but all good things. Busy means that things are moving. So
Yeah,
overall, things are good.
love that. I think if you're a busy person and people want you on their radar, it's better than not being wanted, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, you're obviously someone who is, putting their best foot forward, wanting to get their presence out to the world. I'd love to know just a little bit about, your background and how you gained your social media following.
So I started off as a writer. I've been writing for as long as I can remember. Really kind of broke into the public eye at age 8 when I published these children's books with my mom and did that for a little while. I didn't get into social media until probably 2017. I made this fashion blog at the time and I was trying to promote it. And I had an Instagram account that I was trying to promote it on. So I kind of had a little bit of a following on Instagram after that. And then in 2020, when TikTok was really blowing up, I wanted to capitalize on that. So I started making videos on TikTok consistently throughout 2020 and throughout the pandemic. One night, a video went viral, and that's kind of how it all started. I just got into this really consistent, steady flow of producing content and watched my following really skyrocket during the pandemic. It was a great time to grow because everyone was online watching videos, and I was really just trying to take advantage of that time by producing as much content as possible to entertain people while they were stuck at home. And from there, just really tried to bring my following across all socials since we saw that TikTok can go away in a second and I didn't want to be left high and dry. So I started building my following on Instagram and on YouTube and Pinterest and Snapchat just by taking these TikTok videos I had already made and repurposing them on other platforms.
All right. So you know your way around the social media game. That is super cool. Now, you mentioned something as you were talking there about, the pandemic. And I think the pandemic was an interesting little section of everyone's life that was way, way, way far out there,
Mm-hmm.
and it definitely was a catalyst to a lot of life.
Yeah.
I think we are heavily digital now because during that time, we maybe learned to distance ourselves from being in real life to figuring out how to completely put ourselves out just on a digital footprint so that we could still connect with people as much as we possibly could from a distance. And so when it comes to the pandemic, I mean, how do you think that it impacted your life?
I mean, in so many different ways. I guess for starters, when it comes to social media, that's when I built my following. So even though the pandemic was really difficult on me mentally, I feel like in terms of social media, that really served as a lifeline. It made me feel connected to society when I couldn't go outside and see my friends. It helped me communicate with people online and build a fan base in a way that I never had before. So even though I was really struggling, I also found this great source of creativity. I built a business online on social media. So there were pros and cons, I guess, during that time.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when I was doing a bit of research, learning a bit more about you, I know that the during that time was when you really started to experience, maybe some difficulties with mental health, right? And so walk us a little bit down that path, because it will, it'll help us talk a little bit about how this book came to fruition.
Yeah. So I was really struggling during the pandemic because I was the class of 2020. I didn't have a prom or a graduation. My entire generation was just really going through it. And I didn't realize how that affected me until one day I was sitting on the couch, just had this unexpected panic attack. And I had never experienced anxiety before. I just thought it was the same thing as stress. I didn't understand what was going on to me. I took myself to get a COVID test because I thought losing my breath was COVID or something. And it just turned out to be anxiety. And it started off as purely physical symptoms and eventually transitioned into these really dark, deep, intrusive thoughts that just did not align with the core of who I am. And I just started this learning curve from scratch where I learned what is anxiety, why do we get intrusive thoughts? And the reason is because so many things were happening around me that were so unknown. My brain was trying to latch on to those illogical things that were going on around me and convince me that was real, that was my reality. So I was basically like lying to myself 24/7 and saying that this world that I was living in, this dark, like hopeless universe, was like going to be my reality. Like this was my life. And that was something that was really difficult to swallow. And it took me a long time to get over that and realize that just because we have these dark thoughts doesn't mean they're our reality. In fact, sometimes we get these thoughts because they're almost a false alarm and warning us of what could be if we don't live our life to the fullest. And I went to therapy. I learned a lot about anxiety. I learned about OCD and how the mind can obsess over these intrusive thoughts and compulsively try to pull us out of it. And yeah, I guess that's what led me to write the book. It was not for a few years after I started experiencing these things that I wanted to do something about it to educate other people, because at the time I wished I had someone as a role model who was teaching me at age 18. I didn't want to go out and search for all this research by myself. I wanted someone to kind of hold my hand and guide me through it so I didn't feel as alone. And I wanted to kind of step into that role and be the person that I wish I had when I was 18 going through it for the first time.
That's really important in so many aspects. I think one thing that we always want to have around us, no matter what we're going through, is community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is community in itself is such a powerful tool that is what connects people for, good or bad things. But I think the most important thing about having a successful, thriving community is having people who want to contribute to it. So if you are going through something, the best way to help the people around you is to open up and to talk about it and to talk about how you are dealing with it. And so, we're really happy that you've opened up in a way that can help a lot of people, because based on my learnings and, before we get too much deeper, I think it's important for everyone to know that, I'm not a mental health expert. I'm not an anxiety expert. And Carrie's here sharing her best as well with all the knowledge that she has learned and gained. But we're still learning more, right?
Yeah.
And from, what we see is 50% of young adults suffer from anxiety, or is it just population as a whole in general?
Yeah, I mean, 50% of young adults suffer from anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
which is just
Yeah.
a staggering statistic. And that number is only going up. We would assume it's going down after the pandemic, but it's only going up because of
Mm-hmm.
just look at the world we live in right now. There's so much tension and stress and adversity. And we're
Mm-hmm.
living, even though the pandemic's over, we are living in a post-pandemic world and we're still feeling these aftermaths. I still think about what it felt like to lay in my bed and stare at the ceiling and feel like the world was ending. It feels like it's yesterday. We're still feeling these effects. It's something we're going to remember for the rest of our lives. So I feel like you said community is so important, and realizing that it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to, go out and publish a book like I did, but asking for help could be something as simple as talking to one friend or family member, or seeking a therapist, just someone to kind of bounce ideas off of, or even something as simple as a listening ear, because it can really help us feel less alone in what we're going through.
Yeah, I think one thing, one thought that I always like to share is, when I was growing up, and I think when most of us were growing up, we wanted to change the world. I think everyone wants to make a big impact, but a point that you make there is that having an impact within community could just be talking to the person next to you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to change the world, you have to start with your own community, the people to your left, the people to your right. Once you start having impact, that impact then grows, and it can grow tenfold. So I think it's important for us to understand like the real qualities of being able to make a difference, and making a difference can really just start with helping the people around you. So
And before
yeah,
that,
we're
even like helping yourself, I feel like a lot of
yeah.
times it's a little scary to even reach out to the one person next to you, but it all starts with knowing yourself and talking to yourself and realizing who you are and what you value. I mean, for me, during the time when I didn't want to talk about my anxiety, I would journal a lot. I would kind of like sit in my room and contemplate my life, my purpose. I would just really look inward. And I think once you have a strong sense of self and you know who you are and what you want to contribute to this world, that's when you start spreading it outwards to others.
Yeah, powerful words. So, with that, with the experience that you've, garnered and the things that you've gone through, you've obviously stepped forward and you've written a book. And, I think there's a lot of powerful sentiment behind sitting down, writing, putting your thoughts down on paper, and then sharing it with the world. So, do you mind opening up and telling us a little bit about Mindfire?
Yeah, Mindfire is a guide to anyone who is struggling in their mental health and looking to feel less alone. It's written memoir style. I'm talking about my own experiences going through anxiety and OCD over the past few years and how it's progressed. But ultimately, these are universal themes that everyone can resonate with. Everyone knows what it feels like to be lonely, to be restless sometimes. And what I'm trying to do is help people feel seen. I'm not telling them how to act or who to talk to. I'm literally just writing in a vulnerable manner so someone can read this and feel empowered to tackle their anxiety head on and maybe not push it down as they had before. So each chapter is going to be dedicated to a different emotion that you experience when you're going through anxiety. Like I said, loneliness, restlessness. We also touch on heartbreak, grief, all these different emotions that anxiety might go hand in hand with. And even though I wrote this, it's, the subhead is Diary of an Anxious 20 something. I wrote it in my 20s. These are themes that people go through regardless of age. I've had 13-year-olds come to me and say that some of these themes of anxiety have resonated. I've also had moms come to me. This is a theme that everyone can really relate to. And my goal with Mindfire was to make a community of people who can actually feel seen in their mental health journey and maybe not feel so ashamed of what they're going through.
Yeah, 100%. So obviously every chapter of the book is very important for people to get an understanding of, but throughout your journey and in writing it, is there a chapter that really resonates most with you where you felt like as you were writing this or as you were experiencing it, that this was just such an important pivotal moment for you in discovering yourself and how to really work through your anxiety?
I mean, all of them I feel like contributed to my journey. When you were when you were asking me that question, the first one that came to mind was like grief and losing my grandma, and how that's the one that still kind of like strikes the biggest emotional chord for me. But then also at the end of the book, I had a really hard time figuring out how to close the book because I kind of wanted to tie it in a bow and like find a way to wrap things up. But that's not really possible when it comes to anxiety because there's no finish line. There's no, medal you get at the end of the race telling you that congratulations, you conquered your anxiety. You're never going to feel anxious again, because that's just not the reality of having an anxiety disorder. So I had a really
Mm-hmm.
hard time figuring out the best way to send people off with a sense of hope, but also pragmatism. And I realized your anxiety is not going to get better. You're just going to get stronger. You're going to take the tools I gave you. You're going to think of them every time you have a flare up, and realize that everything will always be okay and things always return to balance. So whenever I read the last chapter of my book, I cry like every single time because I see such a strong, like, now 22-year-old girl, her words, and I think back to that 18-year-old girl who was so scared of her life and didn't know what the future held. And I see how far I've come. And then I think about taking that one step further and how other people are going to be reading this. And in 4 years, they might have that same reaction where they read those words and they go, okay, now I feel like I can really embody what she's saying. Whereas back then, I may not have had that hope. So
Yeah.
long answer, but probably the last.
Okay. No, I think it's important to understand, right, how to, like you said, not necessarily close the chapter, right, or close or end the book, but how do we tie it all together? There's a lot of similarities in the way that we look at, writing a book. And now what we have as an opportunity right at all of our fingertips is, being on social media. It's the journey that we've gone through. Like you said, you reflected on who you were at 18, 19, 20, and looking at who you are now and thinking about the journey that you've gone through. I think all of us now have access to a way to just look at our own little video or picture or a written journal, right, online. And the world follows that as well. And so it is really interesting looking at a bit of comparison and contrast in terms of, you going through that journey, you seeing yourself grow up, how it relates to you as a human being now, having access to that all written down, how powerful it's been for you. And also the fact that you can also just go back and scan that journey right online as well and see your digital footprint and how you've evolved, what you were doing at that age, and who you've become. Now, if we were to dive in a little bit deeper, I'd love to get a little bit of help from you to the world outside. I think we initially talked about the diagnosis, right? What is, if someone is feeling like, they're having issues with anxiety or feeling a bit more stressed than usual, how does anxiety get diagnosed?
I think you got to go see a doctor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a doctor. I wasn't able to diagnose myself. I thought I was
Mm-hmm.
losing my mind when I would just be like having these dark intrusive thoughts all the time and losing my
Mm-hmm.
breath. I didn't know what was wrong with me. So I didn't get officially diagnosed until I went to see a psychiatrist, and
Mm-hmm.
she diagnosed me. But I would
Yeah.
just say ultimately, if you have a gut feeling that something is not okay, ask for help. Don't wait until it reaches its climax and you really
Mm-hmm.
feel like you're going to explode. I think if you know something is wrong, you know yourself better than anyone, and you should ask for help. And if you're asking a parent to ask for help for you, they should listen. Mental health
Yeah.
is something to be taken seriously. I feel like therapy is so taboo, and oftentimes you hear people saying, we don't need therapy. You can just solve the issues by ourselves. But if someone is making a deliberate effort to ask for professional help, that can be the one thing that literally saves their life. So
Yeah.
I would just say, like, if you're the person going through it, don't be afraid to ask for that professional help. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're on the receiving end and you're someone like a parent who's helping your child get help,
Yeah.
listen to them, because they're never going to joke about their mental health.
Yeah. Very true. Now, staying on that same kind of wave of just asking you with your experience, I know this might take a little bit of time to come up with, but if you were to, let's say, give our audience, three things that you've learned about mental health and anxiety throughout your journey that could really resonate and could really help someone,
Mm-hmm.
what would those three things be?
Well, the first one I said before, just realizing it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to get better and you get stronger. Like, stop trying to chase the finish line, because it's
Yeah.
only going to make your anxiety stickier if you feel like you're constantly trying to push it away. And
Hmm.
move towards that finish line. It's not real. So that's the
Yeah.
first thing I would say. Second, like realizing that you need to be patient with yourself. It doesn't take a day for anxiety to go away, and it's never
Hmm.
going to go away. But sometimes you just have to be patient with yourself and realize that in order to return to balance, you have to put in the work. You need to move towards productivity, turn your pain into productivity, do things that make you happy, and see a therapist if that's what you want. And then
Hmm.
realize that like happiness isn't something that necessarily just like it like embodies you, if that makes sense. Like not every day is going to be happy. I asked that
Hmm.
question to myself in my book. What does it mean to be happy?
Yeah.
And I think realizing that, just like you can't chase anxiety as a finish line, you can't chase happiness as a finish line. We're human
Yeah.
beings. We're going to be sad some days. We're going to be happy some days. It ebbs and flows. So I tell someone going through anxiety to realize the happiness will come to you when you stop looking for it, just as the anxiety will go away when you stop looking for
Yeah.
it. Those two things will go hand in hand.
Yeah. For sure. Interestingly enough, I myself, I don't know if you know my background too much, but I went through a reality TV experience, and it brought me to where I am now, and in this place and in this space. And that entire journey of reality TV, I think took what I think maybe a year going through the process in itself, that being fully immersed in it, like going through casting and then eventually going through filming, and then eventually to release. It took quite some time. And I like to consider myself a pretty calm person, pretty worry free, pretty like easygoing. And I had never really experienced, due to that, I'd never really experienced anxiety, like rarely ever. The only times that I ever felt something close to it was when I felt a bit of nervousness when I was about to play in a big soccer game or something of the sort. But I'd never really experienced full-fledged anxiety. And I remember while going through the reality TV experience, I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks before filming was completely wrapped, was the first time that I started feeling this very weird strain on my body that was basically head to toe, and it felt like it was kind of just radiating from my chest, and that was the first time that I had a panic attack. And I was so confused. I was like, what's going on? Am I dying? Right? Like I felt so strange. And going through that experience was so important for me to understand and be able to relate to what some people go through at a severely higher frequency, and a way more consistent frequency. And I think it's just this really difficult experience if you've never ever gone through it before. So I think for everyone out there, it's important to understand what anxiety is and what it feels like to go through it, because you might not experience it ever if you're fortunate enough, but guarantee someone around you at some point in life could be going through it. So you want to know. And just like we talked about, it may not be you affecting yourself. The goal is always to start with yourself, but it's could be the people next to you. Right. And so I think learning about this is really important as an overall. I got my own little experience. And so I'm going to be learning a lot more from Mindfire as well. So
Yeah.
excited to do that. Right. And,
It also looks
you know,
different for everyone, I'll say.
mhm,
Like your anxiety is going to look different from my anxiety, is going to look different from the
mhm,
person next to me. Some
yeah.
people, their anxiety can be really loud and they could be hyperventilating and like crying a lot. And for a lot of people,
Mhm,
it can be really quiet and almost
mhm,
borderline depression. So it looks
hmm,
different for everyone. And just because someone's anxiety doesn't look like yours doesn't make it any more or less valid. Everyone's
yeah.
kind of going through it in their own sense. And I
Yeah.
also did reality TV, and I can relate a lot to that feeling of going through panic in the weeks after it. I
Yeah.
feel like that's obviously like a unique experience because only so many people have done reality TV. But
Mhm,
you know, having having your putting yourself out there in like a public sphere and literally leaving your reputation up to producers is something like no other. So I totally
Yeah.
understand what that's
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. Cosign, big cosign
Yeah.
on the leaving your reputation to producers.
Yes.
That's always a tough one. So yeah, I think we can both echo that. So, as we kind of talk about your experience and what you are doing with your book, I'd love to kind of open up a bit more to your platform and just talk about how you are leveraging that and kind of like how you are mindfully growing that community, right? Because the way that I look at everybody's Instagram or TikTok, like their social media mediums, is you are growing this community of followers who follow you, want to learn from you, want to hear from you. They're interested in you as a person. Some could be there because you give them something. Some could be there because you make them feel a certain way. But, how have you like looked at your social media in terms of really growing it and growing that community?
I mean, social media is very different now than how it was in 2020. At the
Mm-hmm.
time, it was all about likes and comments and views and kind of feeling like your ego was being boosted constantly because you
Yeah.
were getting all these views and everyone was always online. And it has grown into something so much more than that for me. And that I realized that now I built this platform, and what can I use it for? I have millions of people watching. What am I going to make them watch? And
Yeah.
Mindfire was a big part of that, and educating people about mental health and presenting this tool to what I'm so grateful is like millions of people online. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
really rare to be able to have that platform. So I think it's changed in that now it's like so much more to me than just a number on a screen.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to think more about that number as people, and something as simple as getting a message from one person about Mindfire means a lot. So yeah, I feel like now social media, I'm not necessarily like putting as much energy into it as I used to be because I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of expanding my purpose outward beyond my screen, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is a good thing. I think social media is a great tool, but also it's not everything. I have so
Mm-hmm.
much else that I want to accomplish outside, including writing, and I'm a runner. I love running. Like there's so many other hobbies beyond just TikTok and Instagram. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning that those passions come first, and social media is almost like the supplement to that and a way to celebrate my wins and to almost like promote things that I have going on and spread awareness for mental health. Like it's that supplementary tool instead of just my everything in my entire life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think social media, as it's gone on, within the last few years, has become, it used to be very curated.
Mm-hmm.
Social media used to be incredibly curated. I think that COVID had a big part of that because as we were home, we just shared more about ourselves. And what we realized is that, I mean, this may not always be the case, right? There's exceptions, there's outliers, but what it feels like to me is the people who actually get the most buy-in from their community and the people around them, the people that want to follow them, are the people who display their actual selves.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at something like Instagram, it's very different from TikTok, right? And now they're becoming a bit more similar in a sense where with Instagram for the longest time, it was kind of an influencer style. If you have a very cool picture, you post it, you go on a vacation for 3 weeks, you post 3 pictures of that vacation. It's just those 3 best parts of it. Whereas now it's become, hey, I missed my flight and I'm going to
Right.
talk to my community about why I missed my flight, why it was either the airlines or my fault, right? Like how we can help everyone else. Maybe like I did this thing wrong and that's why this thing happened. So it's become a very, very, it's become a productive tool.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's become a productive tool for us to be able to share what's going on and how we can do better, how we can all gain from it in a positive way. So I think social media has definitely become, it's on a positive, significantly more positive side of things
Right.
than it used to be. It's not as curated. And I think TikTok was a big catalyst for that.
Yeah.
And I think I actually really support that in a sense where people feel like they could literally talk about the worst part of their day and have a conversation with people through through mediums like that. So that is something that is really important. And it's great to see that you are noticing that that isn't where the whole conversation has to happen.
Yeah.
Right. I can share a bit of myself there, but also extend beyond that. How do I have access to people in ways where maybe some people don't necessarily love being on social media? Because social media in itself comes with its own certain levels of anxieties, and sometimes we want to detach ourselves from those and maybe just put our phone down. Maybe we want to take a week off or take a month off. So there's important ways to be able to connect with our communities beyond that stretch. And it's great that you've somehow amassed a great following that you can share these things with, but also stretch beyond that. So just wanted to say that. Now, as someone who understands a lot of the ins and outs of social media, what is some advice that you would give to the community out there, the general audience, about how to kind of manage social media so that they don't have as much anxiety or difficulty through it, so that it doesn't necessarily have negative implications on them? How have you done that?
I would just say it's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be curated like it used to be. Social media is fun. You can do anything online. There's so many different creators of so many different niches. You can literally be whoever you want to be online. So I would just encourage people to kind of let loose and let their creativity run wild. And in order to prevent burnout, listen to your gut and just take a step away if you ever feel like it's getting too much. And for me, my entire career is basically online. So taking a step away would be like an hour going out on a run. But something as simple as that can really reset you and kind of bring you back to the present.
Yeah, there's exhaustion in everything. In everything you can get tired, and everything you can get, you can stretch yourself, you can stress yourself. And so it is really important to understand your own balances. It's really important to understand your own bandwidth and how far you can go with something. So, I think Carrie's speaking of it right now, right? She takes an hour if she needs to. For me, sometimes I take a day. It's important that if you are a person who sometimes needs to take a week, then maybe you take a week, right? It's all about understanding yourself and how it affects and how it impacts you, right? You want to make sure that the things that you are doing are bringing less anxiety and less stress into your life. And if you see that something's pushing you to a limit, reduce it and be comfortable with doing that, because it is way better for you in the long run. Now, Carrie, we're going to pivot a little bit to talk about, things specific within social media. When we talk about how the landscape is, how you are growing, the things that you like, the things that helped you to grow, so that we can appeal, more to the people who maybe want to grow their accounts as well, and maybe have a positive message and want to be able to share it with the world. So with that being said, you've amassed quite the following. Did you have any specific techniques or strategies that you really thought about when you started to, grow your following?
I mean, everyone kind of says it, but posting consistently and engaging with your audience is the name of the game. I used to post 4 to 5 times a day when I was first growing my following. Now it's kind of chopped down to 2 or 3, which is still consistency in a sense, but just really making sure you're on that steady posting schedule so your followers can look forward to your videos and come back for more. And then engaging with them. If they comment, if they ask a question, respond to it. You can even go as far as to respond in a video form, host giveaways for your fans, like find new ways to interact with them as much as possible so that they keep coming back for more. And then just, like I said, having fun with it, being yourself online. People on social media are generally smart. They can sniff out someone who is not being themselves in seconds. So just be authentically yourself online, and people who genuinely want to get to know you for you will gravitate toward your page. You don't want to build a following of people who just follow you because of some front you're putting on. You want people who follow you because they appreciate you for who you are. So be yourself, be consistent, interact with your audience would be my top 3.
For sure. All right. And I've seen, I've looked at your TikTok, I've looked at your Instagram, and since those are, for the most part, 2 of the most kind kind of out there, most active public
Mhm.
forums for people to connect. So just kind of speaking to those two, how do you have a certain way that you look at both? Do you treat them a little bit differently? How do you look at those social media mediums like as individuals, or do you just say,
Mhm.
hey, I don't care, do the same thing on both?
I do treat them a little differently. I think a lot of people on TikTok aren't necessarily allowed to be on Instagram. And I'm referring to like younger kids who follow me. Like a 13-year-old might not be allowed to be on Instagram yet. So for that reason, I cater a lot of my videos to my younger audience on TikTok, whether that be through product reviews. I used to do a lot of soap videos, just making it really fun and lighthearted and a little younger. Whereas on Instagram, that's kind of skews a little bit older. That's where my college friends follow me. It's where I post with, my friend group. So I would say Instagram, I treat more like a personal page that I just happen to have a really big following on. And I just post kind of everyday moments from my life. It's mostly photo content. I'm getting a little bit more into reels, but even so, like the reels skew older. Like I wouldn't necessarily post a product review, but I might post going to like a rave or something on a reel. So I just try to like separate it in terms of my demographic. Even like Snapchat skews older for me, but YouTube skews younger, but Pinterest skews younger. So I'm just kind of like tapping into who my audience is on each platform and creating content that accompanies that.
Wow. So, I mean, you brought up a couple other social media pages and sites there. So I'd love to know, like, what are all the different places that people can find you on social media, and how are you actively managing all of those? Do you have a team, or are you just doing that yourself?
No, I'm posting all of it myself. I have a team that
Wow.
helps me with brand deals, but in
Hmm.
terms of posting schedule, it's all me. And I do it easily because I have the content, like the content lives on TikTok, and I just take the video and I repurpose it
Mm.
everywhere else. So any video that goes up on TikTok will most likely be reposted to YouTube, Snapchat, and Pinterest, and sometimes to Instagram. Instagram is kind of
Okay.
just, I treat it like really transparent. Like I take photos every day just for fun, and I stick it in a folder that says photo dump. And if I'm bored, I kind of just like group photos together and throw it up on Instagram. The videos are what takes a little more time because a lot of the time it's splicing clips together and adding a voiceover. And it's good because like once that's done, I can just use it on all my platforms, and that's one video for each platform per day. So I don't have to worry
Yeah.
about creating, I don't know how many platforms, I can't do math. I don't have to worry about creating like content for every platform because I can repurpose
Hmm.
it.
For sure. And so, roughly, how much time do you spend per day on creating and posting content for your social media?
It depends on the day. I mean, I also work a 9 to 5 job, so I don't really have time
Oh, wow.
to like film content every day. I would say over the weekend, I usually designate like 1 to 2 hours to film and edit. And in terms of posting, it's all ready to go during the week. It's already drafted in my TikTok. So, like, 2 seconds. All I have to do is like press a button,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Wow. Okay. All right. So you've got it down pretty well. That's actually, so I did not know about the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, managing to do that, write a book, be super active on social media. Um, that definitely takes some time management. Do
Yeah. Very
you
busy.
manage all that on your own? Do you have anyone that helps you with that? Do you have an assistant? How do you do it?
Yeah, I wish I had an assistant. I was actually thinking about that the other day. No, I kind of just I compartmentalize. I think about my priorities. Obviously, in a 9 to 5, like that kind of comes first, but I'll take breaks during the day. And if I
Hmm.
take like a 10-minute break to pee, I'll like check my social media email on the toilet or something. Like I always like have pockets in my day when I can fold in other things, even like catching up with my parents or with a friend. Like I'll call them on my walk to the grocery store. So it's really just a matter of like recognizing when I have a pocket in my day and filling that pocket. So I'll have moments sometimes during the day where I'm actually like bored and I'll want to take a nap because I
Yeah.
just fill every second I can until everything is complete. And then I'm like, okay, good. Now I'm bored, and bored feels really good. So I'm just going to sit in bored.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. So, I mean, you're as someone who, has a grasp on everything, I think maybe a bit of an elephant in the room is your level of acuity. And I think just like success at the age of 22. you know, I think that you've done quite a lot. And, I think that there are a lot of successful young people out there for sure. But I think for those who are still getting up to this point, like you said, you have people who are 13 years old who follow you, who learn from you, who understand, and want to, want to connect with you. Like, what would you say you credit this success to? And like I said, it doesn't have to be one thing, but what do you think, are a few things that really led to giving you a bit more of this push to get to where you are at this age?
I just have a lot of grit. Like, I'm a very determined person, and I always have been since I was a little girl. So when I achieve one thing, I'm always looking for the next thing to do. And that's kind of just who I am. And yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like toxic sometimes because I won't have a chance to rest. I'll always like want to go to the next level. But I think that's just like an inherent nature in me. And I'm very lucky that I have a great support system around me, my parents, my boyfriend, my friends who boost me and kind of pick me up when I'm tired and when I don't want to keep going and when I want to take a nap. So I would just say it's a combination of like that inherent grit that I have, but also like having a support system around me to keep me pushing forward because they recognize my potential in sometimes when I don't recognize my own potential.
Love to hear that. So, Carrie, we've got about 10 minutes on us. So with that time, there's a lot of things that we could go over and talk about. And I think at the tail end of this, we'll get some final words from you, but we'll dive into a few specifics that, our audience loves to hear about. So we have a quick fire kind of game that we play that speaks to the differences between social media. And so I ask you a question, you give the answer in maybe one word or one sentence. You're definitely welcome to expand on it, but we get through it as quickly as possible. So at the pace that you want, but getting through it as we go. So do you think you're down for that?
I'm down.
All right. Sounds good. So first question, Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram now, but used to be TikTok.
Okay. And why?
So you do want me to expand. Why? Because I feel like I don't know, it's more fun than it used to be. It's posting photo dumps. It's posting me getting all dressed up for the night. TikTok, the product reviews are fun, but I'm also kind of catering to a younger audience. And Instagram, I can interact a little bit more with my friends. So it's fun to interact with like younger fans, but also I love being, a 22-year-old girl exploring the city, getting dressed up, posting in outfits, and but both, but leaning towards Instagram now.
Okay, lovely. That's a great answer. So reels or carousels?
Carousels. I rarely do reels. I probably should do more, but carousels just because I like photo dumps and like putting random photos together.
Yeah, I love that. So, what is your dream brand partnership or collab?
I actually got it like a year ago. It was Peloton because I'm just a diehard Peloton girl. And that happened a year ago and that was surreal. But I guess
I'll have to get your screen name then.
Oh my God, are you a Peloton person?
Oh, yes, I am. I'm going to ride later today.
Who's your favorite instructor?
Alex Toussaint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could have seen so that coming. I feel like your energy kind of like matches his energy. He's just like very hype and like positive.
Yeah.
I love Alex. I rode this morning. Anyway, dream brand deal now. I don't know, something like really fancy. Maybe like a Gucci or like a Jimmy Choo. I'm not a fashion influencer, so I never get those, but that would be cool.
Okay, I like it. Manifesting. You said it out. You said it out loud. I can see one of those brands reaching out to your inbox in the next month. Let's hope, right?
Let's hope.
All right. And then this one, I think I kind of know the answer to because you talked a little bit about it earlier, but batch content or create spontaneously?
Both. I mean, even when I create spontaneous content, I kind of draft it and I keep it on backlog for later. So I guess backlog, but like my backlog sometimes comes from like filming spontaneously.
Yeah, I
If
like
that
that.
makes sense.
So if you were to, in this one, that's it for our quick fire round. You did great, fantastic. And I know the expanding honestly ends up being some of the fun parts.
Yeah.
So thanks for opening up about those as well. So, you know, if you were to start from 0 followers today on all your social media accounts,
Uh-huh.
what is the strategy that you would use to build back up?
Oh boy, I would not be able to hold a 9 to 5 job. That's simple. No, the reason why I was able to grow my following is because I had nothing to do. I was stuck at home
Mhm.
all day. It was all
Mhm.
happening over the summer. I had no school. It was like the summer before my freshman year of college. So I would just need a lot of time on my hands, and I would
Mhm.
be filming and editing and posting and interacting just in bulk, like as much as possible, and keeping
Yeah.
that consistent schedule of 4 to 5 videos a day. I think now having a
Yeah.
job and having all this other stuff going on, oftentimes I'll kind of slack and I'll do like 1 video one day and then 4 the next day and then 2 the next day. So it won't be like as consistent. So if I were to do it now, I would just have to really bring that consistency back and
Mhm.
make like a deliberate effort to put content out and engage with fans as much as possible.
Amazing. And then I think the last question before we kind of get to a tying up point, since you've grown your account so well and you said, you manage that yourself, but you do have people out there who find brand deals for you. For those out there who have literally no clue what a brand deal is, how to get one, but they see brands out there and they're like, wow, I'd love to, I don't know, get some of their stuff or, work with them. How does someone, like you go about getting a brand deal?
I mean, DM them. I think there's there's a lot of platforms like Aspire IQ, Creator IQ, Maverick, influencer marketing platforms you could sign up for and apply to brand deals. But sometimes it's as simple as just sending a DM to your favorite brand and saying, hey, I want to work together. This is what I envision for a partnership. Let me know if there's someone I can reach out to via email. Like, even though I have millions of followers, even though I have a manager that brings me brand deals, sometimes I'll still DM a brand if I really like them. So it doesn't really matter how many followers you have. You can have, I don't know, like 1,000 followers and want to work with a brand, and they might want to work with you. A lot of times brands love micro influencers because they have a really niche community of people that keeps returning to them. Sometimes those micro influencers have higher engagement than macro influencers. So
Yep.
I would say, like, don't hold back. Like, reach out to a brand if you really like them and you want to work with them.
Love that. I talk about this so much. Like, don't lean so heavily on the amount of followers you have.
Yeah.
I think it's more important to focus on how well you connect with them. Yeah. So with that being said, we've kind of touched on just about everything that we want to talk about today. So, before we wrap it up, I'd love to just give you the floor to, give our audience some parting words, a little bit about yourself, or where they can either find you on social media or where they can find your book, anything at all that you want to talk to us about.
Yeah, well, you could find Mindfire, Diary of an Anxious 20-something on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Walmart, Target, basically anywhere you can order a book. And you can follow me on social media at Carrie Berk with an extra K on all platforms.
Love that. Well, sweet. Well, Carrie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Great conversation today. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time and also kind of just opening up a little bit about the things that you've gone through, the difficulties, the ups and the downs, and how we can all relate to those and hopefully find success through all of our journeys. So with that being said, thank you for being with us. And thank you to everyone out there who is listening today. Until next time, we will see you. Have a great week. Bye-bye.